Okay, we're good to go.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our July 30th Streetlight Workshop. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to say anything, sir?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
Go
the
ahead.
mayor is also in the waiting room, Jeff.
I got him.
I appreciate the work that everyone's done to put it together. I just hope that if we could in the future, if there's anything that we're going to share, if we could get it before the meeting, that would have been great.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
Today in our workshop, we will have our finance team led by our finance director, Donna Williams, doing the presentation, as well as our deputy director, Tim Schreier.
We ready to go?
Yes, we are.
All right. Good morning, everybody. We're going to talk about a familiar subject to all of us, our Streetlight Revenue Fund. And I say special revenue fund, but the problem is we just don't have enough revenue in our special revenue fund. This is the position of the fund currently, 12/31/2019. We're at a $2.3 million deficit. And if our fee structure is not adjusted prior to the tax bills being issued, which will happen in the next month and a half, by 12/31/2020, the deficit is projected to be a little over $3 million. We have been talking about this for a couple of years now in earnest, and you've seen several proposals, which you will see today. But ladies and gentlemen, I can't stress strongly enough to you why we need to take a corrective action so that we do not continue to increase the deficit in this fund. Okay. Next, our current rate structure, which you are all familiar with, was approved in 2018. In the residential parcels that have neighborhood streetlights who were getting a streetlight bill under the former methodology, which was based on their linear street frontage, are being billed at $85 a parcel. All the commercial properties are being billed at $107.36. All exempt parcels are billed at $85. Hepzibah and Blythe were excluded from any billing in that process. And for each residential parcel in the urban service district, we simply do a transfer from the amount of taxes collected by the number of parcels. It's transferred over from those collections to the streetlight fund. So that is how they pay their streetlight bill. One of the problems with our rate structure is that 17,000 plus parcels are not being billed, are not contributing at all to supporting the system. Next, I'll go through what our current level of expenditures is. Our current budget is $6.1 million. Now, out of that $6.1 million, approximately 5.6 of it will be spent on electricity alone. There's another $185,000, which is available for supplies and replacement lighting, and $367,000 is obligated for salary and wages for people that work and are charged to that fund. Give you some information about how we have added to the system. Next slide. In new streetlights that were added during 2020, there were 145 streetlights that were added. Those 145 streetlights, by the number of parcels, which was approximately 321, So they're going to be billed at $85 a parcel. So that will generate $27,285. The cost to operate those 145 streetlights is $14,500. So you can kind of see how we are not, we keep digging into the same hole. The hole is getting deeper as we expand under the current system, which is the fee structure is not able to support our level of operation. Just for an example, this was one that was recently approved, and we can kind of go through it really quickly. There were 51 streetlights added in this area. There were 58 parcels that are being billed at $85. So that generates a little under $5,000 to operate that part of the system. But it cost $11,500. So for this one little area that we added streetlights, which were needed and approved in that area, we increased our deficit by a little over $6,500. So it's painfully obvious that we are not able to support the system given the current rate structure. Next, the issues are pretty easy to identify. As I've said, the rate structure is not sufficient to cover the cost of the individual subdivision lighting. In addition to the individual subdivisions, back up, Tim. There you go. 60% of the cost of the operations is attributed to your roadway lighting. So there are two major components that make up the cost of street lighting: your individual neighborhoods, your lighting that goes down your main thoroughfares. That's 60% of the cost. In addition to that, there are over 17,000 parcels under the current billing methodology that don't contribute anything toward the cost of the system, not towards the roadway lighting, and these folks don't have neighborhood lighting. Okay, now, so we've looked at two rate structures, and we discussed these before, and so we're going to run through them again today. A flat rate fee and a tiered rate fee. Those are the two methodologies that have been discussed with you guys previously. So the first one is the flat rate structure, which was discussed at the levels of $100 and $150, which was $100 for every residential parcel, excluding Hepzibah and Blythe, $150 for every commercial parcel, and none of the exempt parcels were going to be billed under this methodology. And this would generate, down on the bottom right hand corner of the screen, $7.5 million. That's the flat rate structure that's been previously presented. I'll go through both rate structures, and then we can discuss. Both have good points, both have potential areas of concern. The second rate structure is what we commonly refer to as a tiered rate structure. Under this structure, you would pick up those 17,000 parcels as you would under the flat rate structure. You would pick up those 17,000 parcels, and they would help pay for the cost of the roadway lighting. You would include Hepzibah and Blythe, and this would also pick up at the lower rate those residents that are currently paying their HOA, and their HOA are operating their street lighting. That would be at a rate of $52.50 is the rate on this proposal. Additionally, your tax exempt parcels would be billed at that same lower rate of $52.50. We would continue to make the transfer out of tax collections for the urban service residential parcels at the same rate as those that are being billed in the suburban area for those that have neighborhood street lighting. That would be a rate of $105. Then the commercial properties would be billed at $175 per parcel. This methodology, after you get through bad debt expense, which on both examples I've used 5% as a bad debt ratio, it comes back almost to the same amount of money, a little over $7.5 million. Next, if you want to compare the two rate structures, like I said, there are points to be argued both in favor and not quite as much in favor of both of the various methodologies. On the pro side for the flat rate, it's simple. You've got two rates and it gets, you're either residential and you get charged $100, you're commercial and you get charged $150. Both of these methodologies can get us to a place where we can begin removing this service that is embedded in the urban service tax bill. We went through this process with the garbage fee, gradually pulling it back out and crediting the millage rate in the urban service district. Both of these methodologies will allow you to do that. On the flat rate side, it does not address the concerns about HOAs for those folks that are paying their streetlights through their HOA. And under this methodology, you don't increase your revenue as more subdivisions are added. The only way this revenue increases is when new parcels are drawn. If you've got a 5-acre parcel and it comes in, it gets divided into 1-acre lots, then obviously you have more parcels, so your revenue increases. Under the tiered rate structure, once again, you can get to a point where you can take it out of the urban service tax bill. As new service districts are added, those parcels would move from the rate of $52.50 to the $105 rate, sorry. So your revenue would actually increase as your service districts are added. This also gives you a methodology to address your HOA issue. All parcels, which is a part of the problem, it would pick up those 17,000 parcels. They pay some part of the portion of a cost of operating the system. The downside on this one is that those 17,000 parcels that were not getting any bill would now get a bill for a portion of the system, which arguably every parcel in Augusta, Richmond County benefits at some level from our street lighting program, whether it is roadway lighting or whether it is neighborhood lighting. All parcels garner some benefit from this program. Okay, next. And I've kind of already gone through some of this, and if I may be repeating myself a little bit, the principle behind the tiered structure is that all parcels help pay a portion of that roadway cost. The streetlight system, in both cases, it is fee-based. You need to be able to level a fee that, number one, supports the level of operations, and you need to be able to tie that fee to some level of service that is being provided to the taxpayers. The parcels in the neighborhoods with the lights, the neighborhood lights, they would pay the roadway lighting cost, which is once again about 60% of the cost of the system, plus the additional cost of the fee associated with neighborhood lighting. Your tax exempt parcels Hepzibah, and Blythe would only contribute toward the fee that is levied to cover your roadway lighting. Again, the parcels in the HOAs that are paying their HOAs for their street lights because their HOA pays Georgia Power or Jefferson or whoever they are. Once again, they would not pay anything other than the cost of the fee for the roadway lighting. All right, on the next page, we've got you a chart because sometimes it's easier for me to see a picture than it is to somebody throwing a bunch of words at you. On the left-hand side of your screen, you've got the current rate structure and who it applies to. So the 107.36, that is all commercial property. Working our way towards the right, under the flat rate fee, it would be $150. Under the tiered rate, the current proposal is $175. Next block down, the $85 under the current rate structure is all residential parcels with neighborhood lighting and the exempt parcels. Under the flat rate, it would be all residential. Under the tiered rate, it is the residential that has neighborhood lighting. And in the bottom category on the current rate structure, Hepzibah, Blythe, those residential parcels that do not have neighborhood lighting and the parcels that receive their lighting services through their HOA, they're currently not contributing toward the cost of operating the system. So that fee is zero. Under the previously discussed flat rate model, which all of these models can be manipulated, all of these can be moved. You know, it is up to us to determine how we want these to look. I've just proceeded with some examples that we have done before and some discussion. I've expounded on some previous discussions. Under the flat rate, we are not billing the exempt parcels, Hepzibah or Blythe. But under the tiered rate system, we would be billing the exempt parcels, Hepzibah, Blythe, the parcels with the lighting from their HOAs, and those residential parcels that are not currently getting a streetlight bill. So everybody would be covered to some degree under the tiered rate system. Okay, what would we do with that revenue? Okay, under either plan, the first thing that we want to do, which we are not currently doing, is cover our existing operational cost, which is currently approximately $6.1 million. So any plan you pick, that's your bottom number. If you don't generate $6.1 million, you're still going into a deficit position year after year after year. Okay, now unfortunately, since we have been in this predicament for several years in a row and have accumulated ourselves a debt of $2.3 million, we need to pay off that deficit. So we need to generate enough money to pay that deficit down. I've used 3 years. That's just, it's kind of a default mechanism for most accountants. You work your way out of a problem in a 3-year process. So that would require $765,000 to pay that $2.3 million down over a 3-year period. Well, what does that do for you? What does that leave to expand and to improve the system? Well, for the first 3 years under either plan, because they both generate about $7.5 million, you've got about $600,000 to expand and renew the system. Now, after those 3 years, after you've taken care of your deficit, you've got more money. You've got another arguably $700,000, because we all know that that our costs are going to go up slightly each year. That $6.1 million is not going to be fixed for the rest of our lifetime. But that does present a plan that allows some funding to expand the system, to improve the system, which currently we are facing some challenges. But our biggest challenge is on the next page. We need to agree on how we're going to bill, what methodology we're going to use. We need to agree on what the fee structure is and who they apply to. We need to approve a revenue allocation plan, which I kind of did a template for you on the previous page. I cannot stress to you how important this is. We need to adopt the rate structure. This has to be adopted prior to the issuance of the 2020 tax bills. Because if it doesn't go out on this 2020 tax bill, the current rate structure stays in place and your deficit moves close to $3 million. This is how the fees are collected. Mr. Kendrick's office puts them as the same as he does the garbage fees. It goes out on the tax bills, which are issued the first part of September. So you miss that window and your deficit goes to $3 million. And then the last thing that we talk about all the time is we need to review these rate structures regularly. You know, we have a tendency to put off things and we'll get to them and then we get in a time crunch and we don't for one reason or the other. But if they are reviewed more often than every 10, 15 years, which up until a couple of years ago was kind of the methodology that was out there. We talk about it, but we didn't do anything. If you make a small adjustment, you don't get to the point where you've got a big deficit and you need to make a big adjustment. And that kind of holds true for not just this, but most things that we do. And so now I'm ready for your questions, your comments. Be happy to address anything that I'm able to do.
Thank you for the presentation. If I notice, I think Commissioner Sias had his hand up for a question.
Yeah, thank you. My question is not so much for Ms. Williams. My concern is for the commission and what we've done and what we had here. Number one, Miss Williams, go back to your rate structure where you had the flat rate.
Okay. One more. There we go.
Going back. Right here. Go.
Yes.
Okay. Now, number one, when we discussed this 3 years ago, and we was talking about a flat rate, and we was talking about leaving off the exempt properties or partially like churches and everything. Now you told us in the same as at the end of that discussion that we couldn't do that. So these partials that you saying will be exempt now, we've already concluded that they cannot be exempt because it's a fee. So number one, the flat rate proposal is coming up short in presentation in your presentation. Secondly, when we talked about this flat rate thing, we never made a decision about HOAs. HOAs for me, and having worked on this thing for a couple of years, simple. Number one, HOAs, except for gated communities, they all have public streets. There's no reason to say that we didn't have an answer for that, because we do. They just simply don't pay a street light bill. And that should apply to everybody, even with a gated community on the individual portion, because they don't live permanently inside that gated community. So every portion should pay residential the $100. And I'm against going up on the commercial to 150, 175. 150 was in much view the best process we had until this blended thing, and now it's called tier, came into play. So I'm disappointed that we're still at this same thing when this information in this thing is not, in my view, accurate. So we need some more discussion on this, and because number one, when now we look at the time frame we're in with COVID-19 and down revenue, I wouldn't vote for this except for it to be effective in 2021, and then we can figure out how to cut part of the deficit, because the flat rate plan is simple. It grows with the number of parcels, and we have a lot of parcels here being developed in Richmond County. We just approved a whole bunch of developments, plats and things, and proposals that each now have new parcels on what's the name of that street? Golden Camp Road. We just approved a plat for 67, or a concept for 67 new parcels. So there will be revenue growth using the flat plan. I have a lot more to say, but I'll stop for now. Thank you.
I have a question.
I have a question too.
Go ahead, Commissioner Williams.
Yeah, I'm looking here at the difference between the tiered rate as opposed to the flat rate. The constituents in the Augusta area, whether they have lights or whatever on their street, they still play a portion, right?
You're referring to the urban service district?
I'm just in general. If I don't have any lights on my street, I'm still paying, right?
Yes, sir. You
Okay.
under the flat rate structure, you would be paying $100. Under the tiered rate structure in its current form, you would be paying $52.
Right. So my thing is Blythe and Hepburn receive services. So why wouldn't we want them to pay on the tiered services?
They are included on the tiered services, sir, under the 5250.
Okay. No, I'm just saying, why wouldn't we want them included? Why is there a preferred flat rate? And I'm just trying to get an understanding. Is there a preferred flat rate? If I'm not, if I don't have street lights on my road, I don't pay out in those areas.
Under the current rate structure, Hepzibah, Blythe were omitted from receiving any billing.
Okay, and my question is
commission action.
Right, and I'm just trying to understand. So why did we omit that?
Because they recommended.
Who recommended that?
That was in our committee, and I want to come back after Commissioner Garrett. I don't want to jump in there.
Okay, so what I'm trying to understand is, why is it that all of us are in a community, whether we're in Blythe, Hepzibah, Augusta, or whatever? I think we should share. So I'll end with that.
Commissioner Garrett, you have a question?
Yes. Looking at this, I'm really concerned of why we're going to include Hepzibah and Blythe in the flat rate tier or whatever. You know, it's my understanding that Hepzibah and Blythe already pays for their own streetlights within their jurisdiction. So I'm not sure if somebody can explain that to me.
This is John. I can probably help you with that a little bit. For some of the streets that are in Hepzibah and Blythe, they do pay for their own street lights. However, Richmond County pays for a large number of lights that go through Hepzibah and Blythe on the major roadways. So a good example would be Windsor Springs Road.
Yeah, but that was an agreement that we put in place before this discussion ever started. So, I mean, I don't think that really applies. I mean, but
well,
what I'm trying to say is, you know, Hepzibah already pays for their own streetlights out of their city fund.
Some of them, yes, and some of them.
But we've already agreed with Hepzibah that we would not charge them for the streetlights that we agreed to take care of on the Richmond County side. So to me, this is going back on the agreement that we had with.
All right, not on to that.
Administrator, my turn now.
Sure, go ahead, Commissioner Size. Go ahead.
First off, I'm gonna start at the end and go back to where I want to get back to. I agree with Commissioner Garrett on that because I can give you an example of that. If you look at Windsor Spring, the new improved Windsor Spring Road, all the way up to the Helpsville city limit, we got way more street lights. And then as soon as you go across the municipal city limits for Helpsville, the number of street lights drastically changed and they are reduced. So as far as that goes, there is a agreement with that, to my knowledge. But now to get back to the main point that I'm concerned about, and Commissioner Bobby Williams raised it sort of. There are areas in Richmond County where street lights need to be installed. But here's the problem. And this is the methodology that really upset me during these discussions we had 3 years ago. We keep saying, well, we don't want to, people shouldn't pay if there's not a street light there. How will we ever get the money to put street lights there? Now, so if everybody's paying the same rate, number one, then we get to do infill. And that is streets and things that don't have street lights. We can go ahead, particularly the ones where houses already exist. We're going out there and get those done with the revenue that we have as we move this along, paying off the deficit, paying the operational costs, and adding street lights to streets that don't have it. And then thirdly, coming out behind that, we have infill. And the infill is where we have shortage of street lights in the community, where they are way past the recommended distance, and particularly to put street lights on at intersections in neighborhoods. So we will just like on Bryan Road out there. Depends on the part that's in Richmond County versus Helpsville. We need street lights on those roads. There's several roads that we need street lights on, and we need to get rid of this antiquated system where the property owners have made that decision, and we are still doing street light districts. And that's what we approved on Old McDuffie Road. And that is a street light district. We got to end that antiquated system and simply charge the parcels for streetlights, put streetlights on streets that's not there. You're not going to build up any revenue to do it. And we have to charge all the parcels in Richmond County, except Helpsville and Blight, unless some kind of new agreement is reached. But we can do that. We have to charge everybody, the nonprofits and everybody, because it's a fee. There's no exemption. When we first started working on that, we was under the premise, and I was recommending that we skip the churches and things, but that we've already fixed that in a certain way because they're getting billed now. So they're really the only exempt folks are in Helpsville and Blight. So there's no exempt in Richmond County proper under this, and the flat rate didn't reflect that was shown here today. All right, so
can I follow to some of his comments?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I guess what both of us are trying to get around to, what would the fee structure look like if Helpsville and Blight were excluded in the tiered system? I mean, because to me, the tiered system makes sense because it does add parcels in Richmond County that do not currently pay into the structure or into the fees, much in my district. So what would that look like? Do we have anything that could tell us what it would look like if you pull out those, 4,000 parcels?
Okay. You have approximately 2,465 parcels in Helpsville and Blight. So the effect on any structure is 2,465 times that number. Under if they were paying $5,250, that's $129,000. If they were paying $100, that's $246,000. I can build any fee structure you guys want. And John,
and that's kind of why I was asking early on for the documentation before we had this meeting, was to be able to see the fees. That way we could have some to present to you, or at least to see where you're going with it. You know, it's hard to throw out a number right now for a structure where we're just now seeing this for the first time.
Well, Commissioner,
This is Mayor.
we do have a streetlight committee,
Yeah,
a subcommittee.
that's correct. That's correct, Chairman Sias. This is Mayor Davis. I appreciate the presentation, and I think there's a request to get this sent over to members of the commission as quickly as possible, so that thoughtful consideration can be given to what's best. I think we've heard from a number of our members on the commission, the commissioner from the 8th, the 4th, as it relates to the flat rate versus tiered rate. I think when we look back at where we've been over the last several years after the adoption of changes to the streetlight pros process, we moved aggressively through the planning and zoning process to ensure that new parcels would in fact be included in the streetlight process, as well as payment and billing would be taken care of. In fact, just in a recent commission meeting, we had a developer who was asked these very same questions about streetlights, and of course, they are in fact being included in the development. What I would offer is that now that we've had this initial presentation, the streetlight subcommittee, of which is already on record, be given an opportunity to begin the good work of reviewing this and coming back with a series of thoughtful but complete and accurate proposals that include expanding the network. The number 17,000, obviously there are some questions as to what that number includes, and we've already taken Hepzibah and Blythe off the table because of prior conversations. That same conversation has even evolved into the SDS discussions that we finally were able to get done. And so I don't think we need to even be revisiting that, raising blood pressure and angst from our counterparts in those municipalities. So that's what I would offer and suggest. I don't think it's requisite for us to make any decisions today. At the same time, in light of where we are with COVID, to the degree that we are collecting revenue already with regards to streetlights to the tune of $5.23 million. That's what that revenue looks like for the current streetlight proposal that we have in place. And again, while there is a deficit, that deficit has been there historically. We made some smart decisions a couple of years ago about how we would try to attack that. We knew we would have to revisit it, which is what this conversation is about. And so I would charge the subcommittee with moving expeditiously and convening a series of meetings just like this and coming back to us with a series of suggestions. And I think it's important for the commissioner from the 8th to be included in that as well.
I have a question, Mr. Administrator, Mr. Mayor, whomever. Hello?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yes, 2 questions. When we said the 17,000 parcels and we take out the 2,400 in Hepzibah and Blythe, so are we down to 14,500 now, Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Okay. Who are those 14,500?
Those are parcels that do not currently get a streetlight bill, which are that do not have neighborhood lights, are parcels that are covered by their HOAs.
Do you know how many that is? I mean, so you don't know the breakout of the 14,500?
No, I do not know the breakout. I just, because we don't actually know how many parcels at the present time are paying their HOA for their streetlight bill. We just know that we are not billing them through Mr. Kendrick's office for the streetlight fee. So they either that number of parcels don't have streetlights because they're not getting billed from us, or they're being paid for by another mechanism because they're not being billed by us.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner from the sixth, let me interject for a second. I'm
Yes.
gonna come right back to you, but keep your line of questioning. And so Donna, as you articulate that 14.5, whatever that number is, there needs to be a clear breakdown also of how many of those are commercial versus residential in order to get a real number.
None of those are commercial, because under the current rate structure, we are billing all commercial. So none of those are commercial properties.
All right,
Commissioner,
Mr. Ursher, Mr. Ursher still available?
John,
Is he there?
he's
I'm
there.
here.
Mr. Ursher, about at our last meeting, I think you can correct me, Commissioner Garrett, if I get the location wrong. We approved some development in District 8, I think off of Brown Road, if I'm not mistaken. And probably some street lights with that. Who's going to be responsible for those street lights? Well, the city of Hudson be responsible for them, or Richmond County?
That's not city limits, Ben. That's county. So they would get the flat fee that currently is imposed on areas with streetlights.
Oh, so they will pay for them.
That's not city of Hepzibah. That's county.
Oh, that's the county. Okay. I just want to make sure. My point is that if we're gonna, my point around that question, is somebody talking in the back?
Yeah, someone,
Yeah, well, I think that was the mayor.
No, it's not me because I'm muted.
You just muted. Okay, so Commissioner Gary, help me understand that. Then I do understand what you just said, but your point about Hepzibah is that in the city of Hepzibah, they take care of their own street lights and everything. Is that your real issue about
correct.
the city? Yeah. Okay.
That's right.
And in the city of Blight, they take care of their own street lights in the city limits.
That's correct.
Okay.
Let me.
That is my understanding.
They take
Except
care of
for the ones that we have an agreement with, which, as we've gone through, we don't need to go back on the deal that we have with Hepzibah and Blythe on the street lights that are in their quote city limits that Richmond County takes care of.
Yeah, I wouldn't encourage that either. I just want to make sure we don't continue for the jurisdiction that we are we've agreed to. We don't continue add to our cost factor in those locations for the jurisdiction that we are covering. I just want to make sure of that we don't continue to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
My questions are answered. I just know 14.5. It'd be interesting to know what they look like. And Ms. Donna, can we get a copy of the presentation today?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We will,
Can you get them to Ms. Bonner? We get them our books this week?
Yes.
Tomorrow?
I can send them electronically and send you a hard copy.
Okay.
But everyone, I have a concern that the flat rate is not reflective of what it should be as far as those 14,000 parcels.
No, they're not.
That 17M. So I'm concerned about that. So, but I think that flat rate need to be corrected as far as at that particular part before it comes out, because we know that there is no such thing as an exempt for church or anybody else, a nonprofit, under the fee concept under the state of Georgia law.
Commissioner
So
Sayers.
that needs to be corrected.
Commissioner Sayers.
Yes,
Commissioner
sir.
Sayers, you may mention you've been working there for 2 years. I don't know if it's been the same field now, but do you have what you think is an accurate representation of the fee structure that you are advocating? Can you send that as well? And we'll have that to look at what's there for sake of time.
Not a problem, what it is, Ms. Williams simply she can make a copy of it and change the number. It's real simple for her. Or John Ursher.
But Commissioner, I think Ms. Williams, sure.
Yes, sir.
I don't be, and I could be wrong on this, so if I'm wrong, I'll stand corrected. What she looks like, unless she got some wrong math, she believes her numbers is right. And
it's not the math. It's just that the 17,000 is excluded when they should not be.
What I'm saying, so why don't you send that? Or you think she made a mistake on that area?
It's not a mistake. That's the way we looked at it originally. but matter of fact, she brought it to my attention. Hey, you can't do that with the fee. We had got way down the road. And if Ms. Williams feel I'm saying something wrong, she can speak up. But that was brought to our attention that you cannot have that exempt. We were somebody exempting all the present property, and you can't do that with a fee. So those numbers can be easily corrected from there.
I can make that correction very easily. If you add those 3,000 parcels at $100 a piece, you can do that math pretty easily. It's another $300,000 worth of revenue. I'll be happy to make that correction and send it out. I will add, and I'm understanding correctly, add in the exempt parcels and continue to leave Hepzibah and Blythe out of the flat rate model.
And that will be an addition of about 14,000, right?
No, sir, they're already in there. The only thing that I have left off of the flat rate model is the revenue from 3,000 exempt parcels. That's the only thing that I've left off.
Was there any particular reason that Ms. Donna was a mistake?
There were several conversations relating to whether or not to bill exempt or non-exempt. And in this model that I picked up, I left them out. And yes, sir, I'm very familiar with the conversation about fee and whether or not you could leave them on or leave them off. And I apologize for the confusion that I may have contributed to, but it's very easily corrected on this schedule, and I can send it out.
Who's the 3100?
That as an addendum to the presentation.
Once again, that's why I requested the information before the meeting.
And commissioners, we will provide in the future the information before our meetings. The purpose today was for us just to do what we're doing now and start the discussion about a matter that we all know we have to address. We also want to, as the last slide here shows, some actions needed, and it sounds like we probably need to go ahead and have another street light committee meeting to discuss these matters, because we all know as far as our tax bill for 2020, we were trying to address this concern. I think staff did a great job with presenting the information for us to have the discussion, and we can go ahead and start some follow-up discussions from this day.
Mr. Administrator.
Yes, sir.
I do want to ask, who are we exempting? What, schools, churches, what? Who are our exemptions?
These are properties that are considered tax exempt for the purpose of sending out tax bills. Now, Mr. Kendrick is going to have to get further down in the weeds for me. I get the classifications from the tax assessor's office: residential, commercial, or tax exempt. So if they are indeed tax exempt, that is what is counted in these 3,000 parcels.
Well,
Ms. Donna, I'm sorry.
Let me finish with this. Mr. Size, I think we need to look at who's being exempted. There may be some that we can pull out. And then I also do think that we may want to be able to look at, and this is just a suggestion, that we may not want to bill these people a regular fee or anything like that, but some type of nominal fee, like, I don't know, $20. So to help us out with it.
Mr. Williams, that might be, let's not say that at this point. That may be a violation of state law. I'll just say it that way.
What? Exemptions?
Let's talk later on that angle, okay?
Mayor Pro Tem has a question also. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, appreciate that. So a couple of comments and questions and requests. Number one is, can we get the projected revenue for 2020 based on from Donna before in the next, because I think the issue I have is that we're going to come back with an increase. There's no doubt about it. We've got to do something different. And to put it all on the taxpayers right now is very, I feel like we should have had this conversation each year. We've had increased revenue the last 3 years at the end of the year. Why did we not talk about bringing the debt down that way? instead of putting it all back on the taxpayers. The plan has to be revised. I'm obviously concerned about the 2,000 parcels of Montclair in my district that has the HOA on the flat rate side. They'd be charged additionally, unless I'm wrong. You can tell me. But I also think that it's time for us to have the conversation about maybe we contract out Georgia Power for maintenance and operations. And could that be a long-term solution to the future of this program to help us? Because I am concerned about where that's going. And then when I had a conversation, we talked about taking all the parcels that were basically all the roads and divide them up based on the number of people. I mean, the total divided by the number of parcels, and seeing what that rate was. And I might have missed it, but I didn't see that. And then basically everybody would pay that. And then if you had neighborhoods, you would pay the other aspect of it. And I'm not sold on the flat rate, to be honest with you. And I think we've got to have more discussion, as well as I'm very concerned about implementing something this year. Let's just try to make sure the debt doesn't increase somehow, some way. If it means we pull it out of the general fund. I mean, again, I just don't feel like we should put this on the taxpayers. So that's where I'm at.
Not this year anyway, Commissioner. Mayor Pro Tem. I said I recommend start 21.
Yeah, but we got to do something to fill the gap. I mean, what is our revenue projection for the rest of the year?
As far as
I can answer that. You're on track to collect revenue again of about $5.3 million.
That's not what I mean. I'm talking about total revenue. We've had surplus in this government
No.
3 years.
Okay, I thought the question was for streetlights. We're going to collect streetlight revenue of about $5.3 million. Your operating costs are projected to be about 6.1, so hence the additional $700,000 gap that is going to be added to get to the 2.3 up to $3 million at the end of this year.
This is Mayor Davis again. I once again appreciate the report and presentation that the staff has given to us. I think that there are a series of things that generally fall in this order. One, a follow-up meeting that I think the subcommittee, Streetlight Subcommittee, should work very diligently to set that up and lead that conversation. The information that we see today is going to be provided to all members of the commission. Number two, Mayor Pro Tem has raised a very solid point, and that is in each of our success previous years, we've ended the year with a budget surplus. And I think that's certainly noteworthy. And so to the degree that that's happened, we need to have a parallel conversation about what efforts can we take to, one, reduce the deficit as we know it today, and two, is it something that simply can be charged off? I think we need to look at all of those options. To that end, I heard the issue raised about Georgia Power maintaining our lights. As I understand it, when this discussion first began, they largely do that now. I don't know what that full number is, but when we were in the early stages of this conversation a couple of years ago at this point now, a year and a half ago, there were roughly about almost 30,000 lights in the system. 4,000 of those lights were in the old city, of which Augusta was still responsible for O&M on those. The other lights, the new lights in the system, were either Georgia Power or Jeffco. And so I think we still should have a pretty good delineation of who the responsible parties are for those. And we've said all along that any new lights in the system, pursuant to subdivisions growing, expanding, or newly created neighborhoods, that Georgia Power would be the entity of record for handling that. So all of that needs to be further clarified and being pushed up against this narrative clock of being on the tax bill for 2021. I don't think it's appropriate. I think that, again, in light of all of what we know today, the likelihood of that happening is probably low unless something magical happens. So I think Administrator Sims, if you can make sure that those things are provided to the commission, it'll put us steps forward in terms of trying to get to a real solution.
Yes, sir.
All right, back to you, sir.
Commissioners, thank you all today for taking time to be a part of our street light workshop.
Before we close, I got one quick question. I apologize for the interruption.
Go ahead.
Will the mayor be scheduled on a meeting for the commission subcommittee?
Yes, we will.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize. Thank you.
No problem. Again, thank you all for taking time to attend our streetlight workshop. We appreciate the feedback, and we will take the feedback and have that for the next meeting. Thank you all again.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good one.